Hello, welcome back to BIOL1309, and today we are going to talk about the evolution of seed plants. We will first talk about a bit of uh, concepts and backgrounds, as well as a few new parts, as well as we're going to later talk about conifers and ginkgos. All right, because Cleve ended at ginkgo briefly. We will not finish ginkgo today, but you'll see ginkgo and the other two, the Genetophyta and the Cycadophyta, next time. Today we're only going to talk about conifers and ginkgo. Right, anyways, so let's get into the nitty gritty of seed plants, or the seed. Seeds are dramatic innovations during the evolution of vascular plants. It is the major reason why seed plants today dominate the plant kingdom, as well as you could say the world. Um, it provides the embryo inside or the plant inside a very high survival rate. The seed itself is also has a very high survival rate compared to spores. Um, I'll talk about it later. So, the seed will provide protection like the seed coat and food storage for the enclosed embryo. So that means the embryo will be protected as well as it will have food reserve when it germinates. So it does not need to worry about not having food when it starts growing. And if the conditions are not optimal, it can remain dormant for a long period of time until when things get better and it will germinate and grow. So a little bit about spores. Spores are really simple dispersal units, you could say. They aren't equipped at handling or dealing with poor environments. So if the environment is not as good as it should be for the spores to grow, they will just perish. But not for seeds. Seeds are a lot tougher. And also, seeds can be um can be haploid or diploid or even triploid. But I think you'll be notified when that is the case, like which plant is which case. All right, so the life cycle of seed plants. I will not go into detail for this. I hope you know mega mega gametophyte and mega and micro gametophyte, as well as the micro and mega spores. If you don't know, please watch the video about vascular plant, the evolution of vascular plants. That is a very important bridging video. I've said that in my previous video, I believe. You have to watch it. Go watch it. Anyways, I expect you know all of these: heterospory, dominant sporophyte, and endosporic gametophyte. New stuff: ovules and pollen grains. These are the two new reproductive advances. Anyway, so the ovule for the female, which is a multi-layered female reproductive structure. You have here the micropyle. The micropyle is the little entrance for the sperm or the pollen tube to enter the ovule. Integument, after the egg is fertilized, the integument will become the seed coat or the tester. And then nucellus, which is the megasporangium, and the megaspore mother cell. This mother cell will undergo meiosis to develop into originally four megaspores, but only one will survive, and the others are degraded. So the megaspore will become like a metaphyte, which be endosporic, so it will be inside the spore, and the megaspore is not released, so that the gametophyte is retained inside the nucellus, so inside the megasporangium. Seeds contain the embryo, so the zygote, as well as food reserves develop from various structures. One structure, it could be the nucellus, but it could be a lot of different stuff. Not going to the detail for that. And for the males, we have the pollen grain. The pollen grain is developed from microspores, so which are formed inside the microsporangia. Nothing new there, but it's a let me see. So the microspore becomes or is developed will develop into the pollen grain, but inside it will have a partially developed male gametophyte. So it's kind of like the pollen grain has a male gametophyte inside, and it does not have antheridia. So that means it does not have a structure to produce sperm, but it can still produce sperm using a cell, the generative cell, which I will talk about later. So an intact dispersal unit with this wall here to protect it. Pollination, so it does not use water anymore. It uses wind, so air or animals, like many insects. And when it reaches the female, it will produce a pollen tube, which conveys the sperm to the egg cell and to fertilize the egg. So, oh yes, so this image here, this is the pollen and or the male gametophyte, I should say. So the male gametophyte only has 4 cells. It has so it's a really simple structure or simple, I wouldn't say organism, simple stage of the life cycle. All right. So aside from the year-old pollen grain and ovule, we also have different. We'll have primary and secondary growth in seed plants. So let me try to explain. So imagine this is a plant. A bit hard, but please do. Okay, so at the very top part, this with the smallest diameter is the shoot apex. So the very top of the plant with the thinnest shoot. And there at the bottom is the oldest stem. Okay, so the plant, the lower part is the thickest stem, and the upper part is the youngest and thinnest shoot. Okay, so each part will have experienced different growth, and the top part, so this part, the shoot apex area, will experience primary growth, which is elongation of the stem. So the stem will grow taller. Well, the stem will become longer, and the plant will grow taller. While secondary growth is the widening of the stem in seed plants. Not all seed plants will have this, but some seed plants will. And but primary growth happens in all vascular plants. So primary growth. It has this part, the shoot apex, has 3 main regions. The ground meristem. This is the part for a lot of cell division, mitosis. The procambium, which will develop into xylem phloem, while the protoderm will develop into the epidermis, so the surface layer cells. So as we go further down from the apex, cell differentiation occurs. The protoderm becomes the epidermis. The ground meristem becomes the cortex and pit. So cells, I believe they are thick wall cells that it has the ability to store food. And the procambium will become the vascular system. So we have the primary, xylem, and phloem. All right. And then secondary growth. So as you go further down, all the tissues appear and they would have secondary growth. So the thickening of the stem. There is something called the vascular cambium, which is made up from the fascicular cambium and the interfascicular cambium, which are cells that undergo cell division actively. And what happens is that secondary xylem will grow from the inside, while secondary phloem will grow on the outside. So the vascular system expands. So you see the primary phloem fibers are here, and primary xylem is still there, but the secondary xylem thickens while the secondary phloem shows up and thickens as well. Remember, xylem always stained red, okay? While phloem is, I believe, green or blue, or blue-green. Okay, for the final, like the oldest stem, the epidermis breaks down. All right, so the outer part is destroyed and is replaced by the periderm. The periderm is this part, and the bark and the secondary phloem actually makes up. Oh, sorry, the periderm and the secondary phloem makes up the bark, and the cortex still there. The secondary xylem becomes wood. They are lignified. They're very tough, and that provides support for the plant. Okay, so this is a cross section for pine stem. You can see here secondary phloem, over here bark, which is where the what's it called, the periderm and the secondary phloem is, where it makes up the bark, and secondary xylem, this different parts, the pith in the middle, the vascular cambium on the very edge actually, and the raisin ducts. So I think raisin is like an antibacterial substance that pines produce. It's like suyak or something, which is, yeah, which helps. It's like an immune system for the plant. And also one more thing. So if you remember, like the xylem rings here, you can see, um, because xylem, the secondary xylem grows in a annual cycle, you can use that to determine how old a plant is. So maybe in this image, you can see this plant, perhaps it could be 2 years old because it has 2 cycles of xylem. Okay, all right, all right. So now we move on to gymnosperms. Gymnosperms are the naked seed plants where the ovules and seeds are exposed. We will talk about flowering plants in the future, and we're only going to talk about conifer, coniferophyta and ginkgophyta. This is the conifers, and that's the ginkgo. So the general strand seed, the development, we have the ovule. So after fertilization, actually no. So the megaspore will develop into a megasporophyte with 2 or 3 archegonium. Later we'll talk about that, and the egg. So when the male gamete fuses with the egg, it will form into an embryo, and there's the megagametophyte still there. Okay, so now conifers. We have the pine, which is in Latin, or the genus name is called Pinus species. They're evergreen trees, so they will retain their green color no matter the season and no matter what time it is in the year. And their stems have secondary growth. All right, they have needle-like leaves. They're in bundles, and they are bisexual. So one sporophyte can produce both male and female gametophytes, and those two will act as producers for male and female gametes. That's what it means. So that's why they're bisexual. And these are the male cones and female cones. Usually you can sometimes see like female cones on the ground, falls to the ground. I have not noticed male cones on the ground, but that's just me being inexperienced probably. So pines have 2 types of shoots, which is this lower part. It's kind of like a stem, but it's shoot. It has the long shoot, this long part, and the dwarf shoot, which is this little structure here. This little, I don't know, like a little stub. And then there are 2 types of leaves. So the needle leaves will grow from the dwarf shoot. All right. And the scale leaves over here will grow from the long shoot, or grow on the long shoot. So at the base of the dwarf shoot, bearing needle. Okay. So sometimes scale leaves may also grow like next to the dwarf shoot. All right. So now we'll talk about male cones. Male cones are very similar to the strobilus or the strobili in like the fern allies. They're small and clustered together around the lower branches, and microsporophylls, the leaves, are spirally arranged on the cone, so spirally. Each um, microsporophyll bears 2 microsporangia on lower surface. So you can see here the microsporophyll with the microsporangium. Okay, so then we'll now talk about the pollen development in pine. So the microspore, the pollen, the mother cell will undergo meiosis to form 4 microspores, but only one of them will survive, very similar to the female. And this spore will undergo mitosis for some reason. But anyways, after it undergoes mitosis, it will have four cells. So two prothalial cells and one generative cell and one tube cell. And it also have air sacs for wind dispersal to make it better. And this four cell structure is already the highly reduced microgametophyte, the male gametophyte. All right, so we'll talk about more of it here. The two prothalial cells are degenerated, so they're going bye bye. But the generative cell and their tube cells remain, and their name kind of already explains themselves. The tube cell is the cell that is responsible for the pollen tube, while the generative cell is responsible for producing the sperms. It will only produce two sperms. You'll see it in the cycle later. So it's a bit like I didn't expect this. So one pollen only has two sperms. Anyways, so they're immature female cones. The upper branch, not particularly important here. Here's just the more structure. So this is the ovule with the megasporal site where it will develop the megaspores, and the integument, micropyle, and more stuff. And this is the ovuliferous scale, which is woody, and it provides protection. All right, so from the sole surviving megaspore, with three of them aborted, the male gametophyte, the megagametophyte would be produced, and then it would produce 2 to 3 archegonia, so egg-bearing structures. And then this is the cycle. Perfect. Okay, so let's see how should I explain this. So you have the zygote here after fertilization. It develops into the embryo of a seed, and an embryo, and then this is the seed with a wing. This wing helps, I believe, in some documentaries, you can see them spiraling down, flying from the mother plant, which helps dispersal, so it lands hopefully further away from the parent to avoid competition, and it will germinate and grow. So let's take the male root first. The male will have these male cones, obviously, and they have the microsporangium, which has the pollen, and they produce this is the mother cell, which produces microspores, and this little thing, which actually becomes the pollen grain. So the microspores would develop into the pollen grain. I'm not too sure if you can say that. It's kind of hard to describe, but just think of like microspores would become a pollen grain, and inside the pollen grain there's the microgametophyte with the wings, generative structures, and spermatogenous cells, sterile cells, pollen tube. The pollen tube is from the tube cell, and the spermatogenous cell divides, producing two sperms. And actually, I think the sterile cell comes from generative as well. Anyways, so then it will be ready for like fusing, and for the female, megasporocyte undergoes meiosis, producing megaspores, and this is the ovule, which will house the megasporangium, and the megasporangium would yeah okay. Megasporangium houses the megasporocyte. It's a bit confusing now. There's a lot of mega whatevers. So only one would only one would survive and become the female gametophyte, which produces 2 or 3 archegonia with the egg, and then that is ready for fusing, and they fuse to form a new zygote. Okay, so more photos. You can see here, this is the seed. The cones, and inside like each sort of shelf, it has the seed. The seed has the wing. Okay, I don't think like sometimes the fallen cones don't even have seeds anymore, but I haven't checked yet. I'm stupid. Okay, so the diagram for the pine seed, you have the nucellus, which is the megasporangium, like the the remnants. Dicotyledon, which is so this part they're all the embryo. The dicotyledon, apical meristem, hyposacchar root axis. Not, I don't think Cleve went into detail for this, and all of those. All right. So there are other conifers. Conifers are not just limited to pine. There are at least 50 genera and more than 500 species. So many other common conifers. We have the firs, the larches, spruces is very common. I think they are the Christmas trees. Cypresses, I think this is also, I've heard of this before. Like we have another very famous juniper and yew. I don't think it's pronounced that way. I forgot. So some pictures. You look at it. You just look at it on your own. Okay. All right. So a bit about yew. This part is the seco. The red part is the seco. It's not fruit. It's a seco. Looks like a berry though. All right. We will now talk about a bit of ginkgo phyta, which only has one species, the ginkgo biloba. This is the only surviving species in ginkgo phyta. They're all extinct. They're all dead. Hold on. Welcome to Wikipedia. Okay, so I don't understand why is it endangered. Like, it's like made for cultivation, but at the same time, it's also endangered. Maybe it's like panda and critically imperiled. Alright, so we can look like maybe ginkgo. Originally, ginkgo has like a lot of species. Well, not a lot, a good amount, but all of them are dead except for ginkgo biloba. And you can see, I think it's like they first evolved from the Jurassic period, or maybe earlier. I'm not too sure. First appeared in Middle Jurassic for the modern species. Oh no. Anyways, just yada yada yada. Look at it yourself if you're interested. So it's the only surviving species in Ginkgo phyta, and the seeds you might or might not have heard of them when you go into like a your choi po or something. They're called bakguo. Um, People I think make soup out of it. Okay, so the ginkgo leaves look like a fan. They have in short shoots, so little this, and this deciduous. This means that they are not evergreen. They will turn into other colors in maybe autumn or winter when the season gets dry and cold. All right. So these are some pictures, very pretty. And then, all right, let me see. Where do we end? I think we will end here. We'll end just here. Okay. So Ginkgo biloba, which is the fossils date from the Permian period. It's a true living fossil. So the ancestors of this type of plant looks quite similar to the modern day plants. It has no natural populations, so we do not really know if the ones in the wild, are natural or not. And it survives only because of cultivation by people in Asian countries. So that is part one of uh, sea plants. And yeah, I will see you in the next video where we will talk more about ginkgo as well as the two other phylums, which is uh, the corn, the corn, as well as where's the other one, as well as this one. What is this? Genial Phyta? I'm not sure what this is. Anyways, I'll see you next time. All right. Bye bye.